Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the NBA slate on DraftKings for Monday, June the 10th. We're going to look at the showdown slate for Game 5 of the NBA Finals. Toronto going back home up 3-1, a chance to win the Finals and close out the series. Big game for the Raptors. I think that's going to really impact the showdown slate. I think that's going to have a little bit of an impact on how we want to pick players for this showdown slate. Like, for example, I expect Kawhi Leonard to play very well here at home. Chance to close out this series. I think Kawhi is going to be a guy that we definitely want to pay up for. But we'll go through all the players. We'll just work our way through the player pool kind of from top to bottom. Once we get towards the end of the video, we'll also look at different roster constructions, different lineup builds. We'll build out a couple lineups, just see what we can do with like an expensive guy as our captain, see if we can make it work. Then we'll look at some different builds with a cheaper guy as our captain, see if that makes some sense. Before we do get started, guys, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like on the video, and if you are new to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button down below so that way you won't miss out on any of my new videos. So let's go ahead and start off at the top with Kawhi Leonard, 12K. DraftKings raised his price up a little bit. Coming off a very nice Game 4 at Golden State, he was incredible. 68 DraftKings points, 36 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, a block, and 4 steals. Took 22 shots, just continuing to have massive volume. He's taking 30 shots a game. I think Kawhi is definitely going to be a guy we want to try and pay up for. He is my top stud on the slate. I do prefer him over Steph Curry. Curry's coming off a pretty mediocre game in Game 4. I was very high on Curry, and he did not do that well. Just 42 DraftKings points in 43 minutes, had 27, 4, and 6. I do expect Curry to be better in this game, but I just think Kawhi overall is the top option and the guy that I want to pay up for the most. So if I'm spending my salary at the very top, I'm going to Kawhi over Curry. Draymond at 10-6 sort of remains a secondary option for me. He's just so closely priced to those two studs, Curry and Leonard, to where I don't really think I need to pay up for Draymond. Like, Kawhi's giving you 60-plus DraftKings points pretty much almost every game in this series. If he's not getting 60, he's getting mid-50s. And Draymond just doesn't have that kind of upside, I feel like. So for that reason, Draymond's just sort of a secondary play. If he fits, if he's like the last guy into my lineup and he fits, then I'll put him in there. But otherwise, I'm going to be trying to fit in the top two guys, Kawhi and Curry. Kevin Durant might be able to return for this game. I'm recording this video on Saturday night. We haven't got any word on Kevin Durant. Right now, it's not looking great. It doesn't look like his body's ready. If you just read this report right here, Brian Windhorst reported that his body's not ready. The trainers don't believe it. He doesn't believe it. He tried to do some stuff in practice, and it didn't work. So he's really struggling to get back out there. Obviously, this is an injury that's serious. It's nothing minor. It's definitely a serious injury, especially since he can't get back on the floor for a finals game. I would imagine Durant's trying to do everything he can to be on the floor. And if this injury is still holding him back, then it's a pretty serious injury. So for that reason, I don't think Durant's going to play here. Even if he does play, there's a very good chance he is not 100%. So for that reason, even if KD plays at 10K, he's just not going to be someone that I feel like I need to have today. I feel like I would rather play Draymond for 600 less, or even save some salary, go down to like Klay Thompson for 1,200 less. Siakam at 9,600 is probably another guy that feels a little bit overpriced. I think I would rather play Klay Thompson for 8,800. Between like Siakam and Thompson, I'd rather have Thompson for 800 less. But Kyle Lowry's a guy that I do really like again. I kind of like Kyle Lowry quite a bit last slate. He didn't do that well, just 28 DraftKings points in 37 minutes. Usually Kawhi and Lowry don't have great games. Usually they offset each other. Like if Kawhi goes for 60-plus DraftKings points, usually Lowry is not having that great of a game. I think Game 3 is when they both had pretty decent games, when Lowry had like 46 and Kawhi had like 50. Kawhi didn't have, or 50 is not that great of a game for Kawhi, especially at his salary. But usually if you get a big game out of Lowry, it's maybe because Kawhi is not having that great of a game. So for that reason, if you're building out a lineup, I would probably avoid playing Lowry and Leonard together. Like if I'm going to pay up for a stud, I'd probably go, if you're going to play Lowry, I'd probably go Curry with Lowry rather than Leonard with Lowry, because usually they offset each other. Usually they sort of have like negative correlation. But I do really like Lowry at 7,600. I think he is a pretty good play that gives you 40-point upside in that mid-tier. Fred VanVleet at 6,400 is probably going to be a guy that I avoid. Just too expensive. He has 30-point potential, but at that price tag, you kind of want him to go for 40-plus DraftKings points. Through 4 games in this series, he's only scored 30 DK points once, and that was in game 2. Other than that, he's usually in the low to mid 20s, and at 6,400, you can get more upside for cheaper, like at a guy like Marc Gasol, or even a guy like Andre Iguodala. Iguodala's been so consistent in this series. He's not giving you like 50 DraftKings points, but 25, 30 DK points. You can pretty much pencil that in for Iguodala. He's going to continue to play big minutes. As long as Durant's going to remain out, then Iguodala, especially at his salary of 5,400, in my opinion, is going to remain a top value play. Serge Ibaka is someone that started to trend up lately, especially the last 2 games. He's seen 22 minutes in both of the last 2 games, 28 and 30 DraftKings points. He's been very productive when he's been on the floor. We've seen Marc Gasol's minutes sort of trend down a little bit. I know last game Gasol didn't play a ton of minutes, just 28 minutes last game, 26 minutes the game before that. He's been losing a few minutes to Ibaka, so for that reason, Ibaka at 5K I think is actually a pretty good value. We know Ibaka's going to be productive when he's on the floor. He's going to try and score. He's going to grab rebounds. He can block shots, obviously. So at 5K, I think he's a pretty good value along with Iguodala. Under 5K, you have guys like Boogie at 4,800. Boogie is really, really cheap and is a really intriguing play at this price tag. But lately, the last 2 games, he's just not been good. He just hasn't looked effective at all. 19 and 15 minutes the last 2 games, 11 and 14 DraftKings points. He's been pretty terrible on both ends of the floor, defensively and offensively. Boogie's sort of been a liability. He's not seeing a ton of minutes right now. He is definitely a risky play. But now that DraftKings lowered his price to 4,800, he at least is going to be someone that I consider now that he's so cheap. Like if he was still up there at 7, 8K, he just wouldn't be a guy that I would go to. But all the way down here at 4,800, if Boogie fits into your lineup, I do not mind playing him at all now that he's this cheap. There's a pretty good chance he's only going to give you about 20 DraftKings points and only going to play about 15 minutes. But if you look at the other guys priced around him, there's a pretty good chance those guys probably score about 20 DraftKings points as well, somewhere in that range. So Boogie's not the worst value play now that he's this cheap. Danny Green at 4,400 is still a guy that I think you can leave in your player pool, and if he fits into your lineup, I think you can play him. He's continuing to see 25-ish, 30 minutes pretty much on a nightly basis, pretty much every game. 30, 26, 27, 30 minutes through 4 games. The production's been definitely inconsistent, up and down. Last game, just 13 DK points. Shot 1 from 8 from the field, 1 for 7 from 3. We saw him have a big game in Game 3. That was because he was able to knock down a couple shots, 6 for 10 from 3, and that game, 32 DraftKings points. You'll have those games where Danny Green sort of gets hot from the field, knocks down a couple threes, and gives you 25, 30 DK points. I've been saying it all series. That could potentially be one of those games, or this game could potentially be one of those games. So at 4,400, he's also a guy I don't mind for value. But once you get past Danny Green, there's not really anyone else I want to consider besides Green. So let's go ahead and talk about some different lineup builds, maybe even build out a couple of lineups real quick. So I do want to try and build a lineup with Kawhi as our captain. He's very expensive. If you play him at captain, he's 18K. But obviously Kawhi has massive upside, 60, 70 point upside, so he's worth the captain spot in my opinion. But since we paid up for Kawhi, we're definitely going to need to find some value. I think the first couple guys we want to throw in there are probably Iguodala and Serge Ibaka, 54 and 5K. That gets us back up to 7,200 remaining per player. So if we want to, we could probably go with a couple mid-tier guys and then a cheap play, or we could go with like another stud and then 2 cheap plays. If you want to go with another stud and then 2 cheap plays, if you want to go with Curry, you could probably do that, and then you could play like Boogie and Danny Green, or you could play like Kevon Looney and Danny Green. Different lineup builds you could do. If you don't want to go with Curry and 2 cheap guys, then you could probably go with like 2 of these mid-tier plays, whether that's Clay and Lowry, or Siakam Lowry, or Siakam Thompson, whatever you want to do. If I had to choose, I'd probably go Clay Lowry. You put those 2 guys in there, that's 5,200 remaining per player. But like I said earlier, I don't really want to try and play Leonard and Lowry together if you can. So for that reason, maybe you take Lowry out and play a guy like Marc Gasol at 6K. Then you could play Van Vliet with him. But I think that build earlier with Curry in there, I think actually makes some sense. You've got guys with upside. Leonard has upside. Obviously, Curry has upside. Even these cheap plays can give you 25, 30 DraftKings points. Iguodala and Ibaka both could give you 30 DK points here. If you go for like Danny Green, he could get hot from the field, score about 20, 25 DK points, be a good value play. You could go to Kevon Looney at 5,600, or you could leave some salary on the table and play Boogie. If you think this is a game where Boogie gets some minutes, gets like 22, 23 minutes and scores 25-ish DraftKings points, then he's probably going to be a good value play at 4,800. So if you plug him in there, that could be a lineup build you do. So I really like that build. If I was playing like cash games, I would probably do this build. For cash, I think it just makes the most sense to probably play Looney in there because Looney's probably safer than Boogie. But for tournaments, if you want to leave some salary on the table, maybe take a risk with Boogie at 4,800, then that's a build that you could do. But really like that lineup build right there. Now if we want to look at maybe a cheaper captain, there's not a ton of cheap captains that I really like. Maybe Thompson or Lowry are two guys you could look to, but lately the winning lineup has always been with one of these studs in it, whether it's Leonard or Curry. Usually those are the guys you need to pay up for at captain. I think that game where Lowry went for 40, 60K points, he was actually in the winning lineup at captain. I'm not 100% sure on that. Unless you get like a 45, 50 point game out of Lowry or Thompson, usually they're not going to be the captain plays that you want. But if you do put one of them in your captain, that's going to let you get a lot of good studs in there, whether it's Lowry or Thompson. We'll go with Thompson as our captain. That's probably going to allow us to play Leonard and Curry together. Throw in a couple values in there, whether it's like Danny Green, or dang, we're at 4,400 remaining per player, so we probably need more value than that. We probably have to play like Bogut or something. If you put Bogut in there, then you could play Danny Green and Boogie, or you don't want to play Boogie and Bogut together, but you could play Ibaka in there at 5K. So that's a build you could look to, but like I said, I think what makes the most sense is just to pay up for Kawhi or Curry. In your captain slot, I prefer Leonard. And then throw in a couple of those cheap values, whether it's Iguodala, Ibaka. Those are the two guys I would definitely start with. You can throw Boogie in there if you think this is going to be a game where Boogie sees some minutes. If you think Boogie maybe struggles, maybe you go to Andrew Bogut. Bogut's been getting some minutes lately. Saw 22 minutes in Game 3, 11 minutes in Game 4. Honestly, there's probably a chance that Bogut gets a start over Cousins because of how bad Cousins has been lately. So if Bogut does start by some chance, that would make him a pretty decent play at 3,600. But I think that's it for this showdown slate, guys. I think that is it for the video. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. Hopefully it did help you. If you enjoyed, make sure you drop a like down below. I would really, really appreciate it. And make sure you subscribe if you have not already. And if you do have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. Or you can hit me up on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT. If you do have any questions, feel free to message me on Twitter as well. But I think that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed, and good luck on this slate.